Hello and welcome to Birth Time, the podcast. Following the success of our world-renowned and international award-winning film, Birth Time, the documentary, we are coming back together to explore a wide variety of topics around pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. As a way of exploring topics in great depth, we will be covering one topic over several episodes, bringing you up-to-date evidence-based information from academics, practitioners, and birth workers, as well as stories and lived experiences from birthing women and people and their families. We will also have interludes with people we interviewed in Birth Time the documentary, finding out where life has taken them since the creation of the film. Join your hosts, homebirth midwife Jo Hunter, doula and birth photographer Jerusha Sutton, and occasionally producer and shamanic practitioner Zoe Naylor, as we delve deep into the world of growing and birthing babies. Hello, wonderful people, and welcome back to Birth Time, the podcast. This is episode 4 in our second series of Who Defines Risk. Now, this series was born out of the news of proposed changes to the Professional Indemnity Insurance guidelines for privately practicing midwives. And we have been exploring with different people what this may mean. And so if you haven't listened to previous episodes, please go back, listen particularly to our first episode in the series with Kristen, the head of Homebirth Australia, which will give you a very broad and detailed overview of what is going on. Now, there has been some news this week, which Jo, my lovely dear co-host and friend, Jo Hunter, is going to update you on right now.
Yeah, hello. So we're at the point right now where women that are finding out they're pregnant this week are due in July, which is when the exemption was going to end and when this new insurance product for low-risk women was going to come into play. So everybody's been sort of holding their breath over the last couple of weeks, wondering what on earth is going to happen. And obviously even, lots of phone calls from women who are potentially outside the low-risk guidelines and what's going to happen for them, in their next pregnancies. So Kristen from Homebirth Australia spoke directly with the Chief Nurse and Midwife's office last week, and they confirmed that they are confident that the current exemption will be extended until December 2026. So that's another 18 months, which is going to give, or hopefully will allow for a more thorough and appropriate consultation process and include all of the key stakeholders, Homebirth Australia being probably the main one, and then obviously the College of Midwives and then the other groups as well. So we're hoping, and, it's a positive thing. It's a very positive thing, particularly for women that are getting pregnant now. But we're hoping that it will ensure that home birth remains an accessible option for all women and families into the future. So I think we probably just really would love to give a huge shout out and acknowledgement to Homebirth Australia and to all the volunteer organisations who've been involved in the campaign. They did not rest and they did not sit back and hope for the best. They worked their butts off and they created an extremely successful campaign where they engaged 1,200 people to write letters to their MPs, many of whom actually had meetings with their local MPs. And they had 6,000 people fill in their survey, plus, so much more than that, but they're the sort of key points. And without their tireless work, we would absolutely not be here. So huge thanks to Homebirth Australia and all the wonderful people volunteering their time. So whilst an extension to the exemption has given us a bit of breathing space, the work's far from done. And we've got to stay vigilant and on the pulse and continue to let the government know what's acceptable for us as midwives and for the clients and the women that we serve. So stay on the pulse, and you can by going across to www.homebirthaustralia.org and sign up for their newsletter, and they're going to be sharing information as it comes through. So with this news, it's our greatest pleasure that we welcome Mia onto the podcast today. Maybe you can just give a little intro, Roo.
Yeah. Mia is a transformational birth coach and VBAC mumma of two, whose daughter, Carly, was born at home on this day that we are recording in 2022. Like so many, Mia's emergency caesarean story kicks off with being induced and not knowing if and how to push back. The next chapter involves her overcoming her obstacles and birthing at home. And now Mia is harnessing the power of positive birth psychology and her own experience to guide women through home birth and to break down barriers. Mia, welcome to the podcast. Happy birthing day to you. We share something special, don't we? It's both our baby's birthday today.
We do, yes. We're October mamas.
To have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
So perhaps you can just start off, Mia, by sharing your first birth story, and even from, throughout your pregnancy as well, and what happened. What was the catalyst for his birth?
I'd love to. So Finn was a happy surprise. My partner and I were living in the UK at the time, and I found out that I was pregnant the day before we went into the first lockdown before COVID. So we were on the other side of the world. I was completely ignorant to birth and what was ahead of me. Like most people, I just wanted to have a natural birth and everything go great and whatnot. So it was the first time I ever saw anyone was at 12 weeks. So that was the first time I did any blood tests or saw the baby or anything like that. So the whole journey was quite insular, and I was, I had to do everything on my own. My partner couldn't come in for the scans or anything like that. And at that point I thought, honesty is the best policy, and I'll tell him everything. And I told him that, my grandmother had heart disease and whatnot and all sorts of other things. So home birth wasn't really on my mind, birthing, and they don't really discuss any options like that. But I had a really healthy pregnancy. There was absolutely no glitches or anything like that until I hit the 27-week mark, and I got a really high reading in my BP one day at an appointment. But this was like height of COVID, and we were trying to get home, and just a really stressful situation. So nothing really came of it. They kind of said that it was white coat hypertension. There was no protein or anything like that in my urine. So we kind of just like plodded along. And then one of my friends from Sydney suggested a home birth. And I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good idea considering it's COVID and, I won't be able to have my partner in the hospital or anything like that. So we were like, yeah, we'll do that. And we kind of decided on that at about the 33-week mark. So it was really late in the game. So other than we're going to birth at home and this is what we're going to do, there was no other prep. There was no mental prep. There was no emotional prep or anything like that. But still pretty healthy. And then I met my midwife. It was all okay.
Was that a midwife through the system over there, or did you get a private midwife?
No, it was through the system, yeah. So through the hospital, they have a home birthing unit, similar to what we have here in Sydney. So my local hospital had that. And I met the criteria. They were like, yeah, it's fine, no worries. And it's a similar sort of setup where it was you have one midwife and then a backup and that sort of thing. When I met my midwife, we didn't really gel. It was just a something, nothing. And so the second time I saw her was at my 35-week appointment. Everything was okay, a little bit elevated blood pressure. She was just really nothing about it, like doesn't really matter. And then she came for my 38-week appointment. And that week, again, everything that was happening, it was again high. I can't tell you what it was. It was, I would say, high for a normal person, probably within range for me. And she was like, oh, it's kind of high. I thought maybe I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. She was like, I don't know, why don't you just go into the hospital and see how you go? And so I kind of just took myself into the hospital by myself, no bags packed, said goodbye to my partner. and went in at about 11, and then, waited for hours and hours and hours, like not a drop of water, not a sandwich, like just sat there. And they just kept on testing me every so often. It just went higher and higher and higher, to the point where it was like dangerous. I think it was like my highs were like around 160 and 160 over 100 or something like that. Like it was pretty bad. And I was crying and, kind of beside myself. And so they gave me meds. They like all the protein and everything on my urine came back normal, and my bloods were fine. And the head OB came in, and she was like, so, your blood pressure's not going down. This is kind of the point where we'd like to suggest an induction. She's like, you can decline, but, I wouldn't recommend it. What do you want to do? And I was just kind of in this queue by myself, like bawling my eyes out. I had no idea what to do. And so I was like, I don't know, like, yeah. And then they left me again for like another 2 hours or something. And they were like,
how many weeks were you then?
I was 38 okay. Plus 3.
Yeah.
And so I called my partner, and he was like, oh, okay. Quickly packed my bag, came in. So they had the room ready, and I guess that's kind of why, it was a quiet day. So let's just get this baby out. But I was medicated, and I just had no idea. Anyway, we started with the pap-smear at 9 o'clock. I wasn't really allowed to go anywhere because it was COVID. So I just kind of did laps of the room until I got tired, and then I'd lay down and whatnot. We did that, nothing happened. But I remember that night, like I wasn't there to have a baby, I was just there to just see what was going to happen. So I had no idea. And then they did the pap-smear again. Nothing happened. We kind of just like sat around, and I told them really naively that I wanted to have a water birth, and I didn't want the drugs and whatever. And they were like, yeah, sure. Here's a bathtub. And then at 9 o'clock in the morning, so that's 12 hours, nothing happened. I had 3 female surgeons walk in, like completely covered in head to toe with masks and hats and things, to break my waters. And like, unbeknownst to me, like I wasn't, like, not only was I not there for that experience, I had no idea what breaking of the waters actually meant. And so just like having like these women holding me down and like watching kind of, them shoving this thing into my stomach. One of them's like pushing down, trying to break the waters, because we weren't ready. Like that ordeal, like I'm crying, my partner's crying. It just like shook us to our absolute core. And then again, nothing for hours and hours. And then they were like, Pitocin, this, that. So then we did the Pitocin, and then nothing. And I was like, this is too painful. And by that time, I'd just given up. I was like, this is like, this is like land to a slaughterhouse kind of thing. Like, I'll just lean in. So I took the epidural and had a sleep. And then, the usual story of heart rates just going up and down. We're not okay. I'm not okay. The baby's not okay. We slept through the night. And then, like the doctors are coming in, same thing, like procession, like lift your legs. And they were like, I think I got to 6-7 centimeters. And I kind of got a little bit of hope. I was like, I can do this. I can get in the bath. And they were like, oh no, you can't get in the bath. Like, there's no way you can get in the bath. Like, don't get in the shower. So I hadn't showered in that time. There was no food, like not a drop of water. I was just, yeah. So, and then another couple of hours went past. And then the doctor came in, and they were like, so this is getting to the next day, and it's around 6. And so I knew my time was running out anyway because of the breaking of the waters. And they were like, look, the baby's in distress. Like, you're only really 6 centimeters anyway. And like, I remember her face so clearly. Like, I don't really know what we're doing here. So like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, just cut him out at me. Like, let's just get this over with. And so, yeah, they really quickly got everyone in and put the epidural in, or like topped it up and rushed me in and whatnot. And so I'm like all covered and got my face mask on, and we're all crying, like, what is happening? And I remember the anaesthetist was the only one that was like, take your mask off, like take everything off. And he put all the things on my back and pull my gown down so I can get skin to skin, because that was really important to me. They were the two things that I asked for. Like, that's kind of where I got my voice. And I was like, I want to hold my baby and I want to keep the placenta. And like to wait for it to stop pulsating. So they gave me my baby, like they cut him out really quickly. That was, I mean, the cesarean part was actually, you know, nothing to like to think about now. But I got my baby and he was on me for a little while and they took him away. But yeah, they threw my placenta away, and then like, you know, out of jest, they were like, here's a bit of his cord. So I've been carrying a bit of his cord just as, you know, a memento. And then after that, it was just like, you know, recovery and like shoving the baby on the boob. And I like, there's a photo of me looking at him, like, you know, 20 minutes or like half an hour after birth. I don't even know how long it was. And I'm just looking at him like he's someone else's baby, you know, like, this is weird. And he's in the like bassinet next to me, and like they're going, no, you can't hold him, like because of like the drugs or whatever that I've had. So once we found a room, my partner had to go home because it was visiting hours. So I spent the entire day by myself with this baby and the procession of doctors coming in and out. And so if you can imagine, like I'd gone in on Wednesday night and I hadn't eaten, I hadn't drunk, I hadn't had a shower, I'd been induced, I went through whatever else. I had a caesarean, like still no shower. My partner's at home and I'm like, can I go have a shower? And like my bed is still drenched in blood and whatnot, like it's disgusting. And I'm like, will you look after my baby while I go into the shower? And they're like, oh, just wheel him into the hallway. And I was like, oh my God, no, like what? So, you know, my partner came and all of that, and we kind of recouped. And then the next morning I was like, I got to get out of here. So I signed myself out. They told me not to, and I was like, I can't stay here. This is absolute lunacy. And I went home, and it was devastating. Like the first week afterwards, I was devastated. Like I felt like I hadn't birthed my baby. I felt like I had no idea what had just happened. Like violated, you know, like just shocked. So yeah, and the other thing for me was that I was under the impression, because everyone around me had had cesareans or they'd been induced or whatever. So I was like, everything's medicalized, everyone's an induction, everyone's a cesarean. And then once you're cesarean, it's always a cesarean. And I was like, and that's it. And I failed. Like, it's done for me. And I remember speaking to my friend and she was like, that's not true. You can have a vaginal birth after that if you want. And I was like, really? I'm allowed? And so then that was it. Like I was on my path. I was on my warpath. And so I knew from the start that I was going to have a VBAC. I was like, that's it. Like I don't care. So yeah, that was Finn's birth.
How was your recovery from that, Mia? Like I guess the months following that, and the realizations or the discoveries of what actually happened to you, the reflection. How was that process?
Physically, luckily, it was, I mean, and I say luckily because mentally I was scarred, but physically I recovered really well. Like I had a terrific surgeon. Like I guess So I could actually get on with life. And we moved home back to Australia when Finn was 6 weeks old. So it was a really busy 6 weeks trying to get home and getting his passport. So it was like stressful, but it was okay. He had a tongue tie. I had a hell of a time trying to breastfeed, but I was determined because I was like, oh, we didn't get the start that we wanted. I'm getting this. Like, I'm not giving up on this. So we did all the things, and I knew that on the plane I needed to have him breastfeeding. So we got his tongue tied, released, and we saw lactation consultants, chiropractors and whatnot. So I felt good about that. You know, I had my task and I was on to that. So that was task one, and I overcome it. Like, we did that. We breastfed for over 2 years kind of thing, and it was perfect. And I think like the newborn phase, again, because we were alone, like it was just my partner and I, like we still had to go to quarantine. We then had to go to Melbourne for his work. So we had no family around. It was just us. So it was a bit kind of like whirlwind, shocking, like the whole thing was just mental. But in the same time, we got to do things our way without the impact of family, without, you know, anything getting in the way. And then as it got on, it kind of started creeping up, you know, like the flashbacks, when I should have pushed back, what I should have said. And then it just got kind of like worse and worse and worse. And, you know, where it would like keep me up, and then I just get really angry, and like I refused to see a doctor for a really long time. I was just like I just, my faith had just gone completely in anybody else other than us. So it was really tough. And I think, and I knew that I wanted to start trying again when Finn was after his first birthday. And that's kind of when things got like peaked for me. And I knew I needed to get help. I knew I needed to overcome that feeling. So, you know, I seeked counselling, and I went to see healers and did all the things. But it wasn't so much the induction. It was the initial consultation and then the breaking of the waters that I found the most impactful on me. Like, that was the most traumatic part. And I think because it's so downplayed, you know, like, I'm just getting induced on Monday. Oh, I can have a baby on Monday. They're going to break my waters. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. It's horrible.
How was your partner through it?
At the start, he kind of went through the range of motions with me, you know, like he wasn't for home birth. He just, you know, he was like, yeah, okay, I don't really like hospitals. So if that's what you want to do, sure. And then in the hospital, he was like, oh, like shocked. I guess like typical male role, like whatever the doctor says, like, I guess that's the right thing to do. But, you know, he would be like, hang on a minute. Can we talk about it? Hang on. And like by that stage, I was like, oh, what's the point? Like, we're here now. We're not, what are we going to do? Go home? So he kind of felt a bit bamboozled as well. But after everything, he was like, yeah, we're going home. Sign me out. And then was on the same page as me. He was also, I don't want to say traumatized, but like he was kind of shocked as to what had just happened. And he's the biggest advocate for home birth and, you know, female reproductive rights and, you know, all of it. So we were on the same page. We knew what we were going to do.
Hey there, Zoe Naylor here from the Birth Time team. Did you know that we have held several live events on popular birthing topics that are available to stream via our website? When you subscribe to the Hub, these are included for free. But alternatively, you can watch now for only $9.99 Australian dollars. Head to birthtime.world to find out more. Now it's back to the podcast.
So you were in Melbourne, and how long were you there for?
So we were in Melbourne for 3 months. were there for 3 months, and then we moved to Sydney when Finn was 4 months old, 4 and a bit months old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then did you stick to your plan of starting to try again after his first birthday?
Yeah, we did. So we got lucky again straight away, and I wanted to see what my options were. So I spoke to some friends, one of them who's a doula, and she was like, oh, let's just see what the Sydney hospital that offers home birth says. And they were like, straight up, no, do not qualify. I guess that I should mention that after Finn's birth, I was medicated for hypertension. What they wanted was like months, but I was under no care. So I didn't see a doctor. Like, I just had a script for this medication that I was supposed to be taking for this non-existent like diagnosis. So I weaned myself off. I didn't know whether that was the right thing to do, but I was like, no one's following up. So between taking like fistfuls of medication and jabbing myself in the leg with blood thinners, I was like, this doesn't seem normal to me. So I just kind of slowly weaned myself off everything, and I was just taking my blood pressure regularly, and everything was fine. Like, I didn't have high blood pressure at all. So I knew I didn't have high blood pressure. Like, I had a monitor and I did it every day. So when we fell pregnant with Carly, I looked at home birth through the hospital. They were like, no. So we were living in Sydney City, so I was technically qualified to go through Ramwick. And they said, maybe you can go through the birth centre, but you would have to be under OB care. And for me, that was just a straight up no. Like, would not do that at all. So I kind of started looking at my options, and I knew that Jo was the woman for me. So I hounded her at like 4 weeks pregnant or something like that. And I was like, take me. And she did. And I was elated. So, I mean, everything about that experience was completely different. And I guess I got to learn a lot about myself along that care as well, because I still had a lot of the language of, am I allowed to do that? And, will you allow me? And she was like, whatever you want, I don't know. Which was amazing for me, because I was like, okay, I'm in charge. So yeah, like, it was an easy pregnancy. Like, nothing really happened. Like, I had a really busy toddler, and I just kind of hung out with him, and we saw Jo every so often, and getting my family on board for a home birth with a VBAC, and our friends, like, most people were like, you're insane. Will there be an ambulance there? And I'm going to call the hospital and make sure that they let you do this. And so I just kind of stopped talking about it. I was like, we don't need to talk about it. It doesn't really matter where I birth or who's there, or you'll find out later. And then, funnily enough, at the 38-week appointment, I had a cold, and the second midwife came out to, I think, sort of meet me for the first time, I think it was, and my blood pressure was high, and I was beside myself. I was like, this is happening again. This is it. Like, I'm not in my head, and, it's just happening again. And she left, and she was like, I'll let Jo know and whatever. And Jo called me, and she was like, it's okay. It's high, but it's not that high. And we've just run some tests, and, we'll prepare for every outcome. But, it's not the end. It's not the end, and just hang in there. So we did that. I got my bloods done, and nothing came up, and my cold went away, and I started doing all the things, that you could do for blood pressure. I was seeing an acupuncturist twice a week. I was taking herbs. I was doing the brewer diets. I was eating protein every hour and drinking 4 liters of water a day. And I was so busy for 2 weeks that I had no time to do anything else. But we kept it at bay. It was always under 90 over 140 or whatever it is. So I was okay with that. And then for the first time in my life, I felt contractions. I felt, tightenings and whatnot. And I was at the park with my son and I was like, oh my God, is this a thing? Is this what it feels like? It's a lot stronger than what I thought. So this was on my 40 weeks day on the Tuesday. And during the day, I just went into panic mode. I was manic. I was cleaning and cooking and it was manic. And obviously my blood pressure just went straight through and then I freaked out and Joe was like, okay, so it's okay, just relax, blah, 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 but pack a bag just in case that we have to change course, do everything that you need to do. But it's okay, it'll work out. And again, I was crying but this time my partner sent my son away. He was like, he's got to go because he was just on me. He could feel that intensity. And then we got in the bath, he relaxed and lay down and lots of breaths, herbs, all the things. My blood pressure went down. I went to sleep, woke up the next day and nothing happened. I was like, oh, that was anticlimactic. And so I just took the day, we went for a walk and, watched shows and did all the nice things to boost the oxytocin. And my blood pressure was okay. We kept on checking it every so often. And then we decided that we were just going to stop checking it because it was causing a bit more stress than good. So we stopped checking it and I kind of labored through the night, had a contraction here and there, every 10 minutes or so. I was trying to sleep. I did all the things. I was, resting and then I'd walk and then I'd rest. And I'm like, which one do I do? And then my waters broke at about 5 o'clock. I was sleeping and I just felt this huge contraction. I was like, ah, popped. And I was like, oh, that's it. And then that adrenaline hit me. And it was on, we just started. And I don't think I ever felt like I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm here now, I'm doing it. And then we were kind of doing the pool, getting in, getting out. And I remember at one time, I think it was 7 on the Thursday morning. And I was like, call Joe, because I kind of felt like I couldn't let go. I still had that fear, I can't just birth because what if something happens? And so we called Joe and Joe came and same thing, toilet bath. And then, it was an hour and a half of pushing. I saw a photo of it today and I was like, oh, wow. I'm not sure I'm ready to do that again. And she was posterior and her head was asynclitic. So it was the hardest part of her head to come out.
Mumma.
And she was born at 11:31 on the 20th, which was coincidentally the time that Joe was supposed to have my 40-week appointment at. So, it was all kind of serendipitous.
That's a bit special.
Yeah.
It's just
so
stunning.
that was it. Yeah. It was the best day of my life, I've got to say. Well, yeah.
And how did you feel after that?
Elation, just elated. I don't know. I think it's what you're supposed to feel when you have a baby, you're supposed to feel elated, you did it, You know, you're
Hey,
born to do this kind
what
of
are you
thing.
doing?
Hi there,
He's,
little person.
yeah, someone that should be
So, why are you
asleep.
calling both people?
Um,
Why are you calling both people?
okay, you need to go back downstairs. Go to Dad. He was supposed to be asleep. So yeah, like it was completely opposite to what I felt first time around.
It's so beautiful. And your partner?
Same, like he was, yeah, I think in the birth video everyone was commenting about him, like more so about him because he was crying and like so happy and holding me, and he was like, the rush of emotions was just incredible, you know, like he was like, when I saw Carly appear, like he goes, I could see my mother in her face. Like I could see, you know, I could see the light in her. I could see you, like the whole thing. It was like mind blowing. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah.
Mia's beautiful video, she allowed me to share it, and it went completely viral, didn't it? We'll share it, actually.
Yeah.
If that's okay, we can reshare it on the birth time one, because it's absolutely it's stunning. Your sister was filming it, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was filming it. So my sister was there the whole time, and like it was just my partner and my sister and Joe and Jackie, and it was just the most spectacular time. Like I just felt so held and so comfortable in that. Well, you know,
That's
minus
the
yeah. So I, you know, when I found out that I was pregnant again, like there was no question. Like it was no question what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. And it was kind of around the same time that this PI stuff was coming out. And coincidentally, it's the same time that the birth trauma inquiry was coming out. And I thought, what a terrific sidestep for the government, you know, like we can't get you this way. What we can do is here with an insurance policy. And I thought, bravo, you know, like terrific. Just, yeah, one step forward, 6 steps back. So, yeah, I wholeheartedly want to change it, wholeheartedly.
So I guess, I mean, one of the other things that we should probably just touch on, given that this is a episode or a series on risk, is that, you know, obviously you had previous caesarean, but with the blood pressure as well is another added factor. And
Yes.
if the insurance was to be pushed through as it stands, and we didn't, you know, have Homebirth Australia and all the other amazing people fighting against it, you would have been completely out of the category to be able to access a privately practicing midwife and have a home birth. So, which, you know, is the problem, because you've just proven everybody that it can be very successful and really safe as well.
Yep.
So yeah, how were you feeling about that? I mean, the thing is, like, we're not out of the woods at all.
No.
I mean, we've got an extension to the exemption, but it doesn't mean that, you know, we still have to fight for what is going to be an acceptable thing for all of us.
100%.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, so, 100%.
Yeah. So what are your plans now? I believe you're pregnant again.
I am, yes. So I'm pregnant again. I'm living out of Joe's jurisdiction. And I had to do the same thing. I had to look for a midwife that was close by. I decided that I wanted a midwife. I wasn't going to go down the free birth path or anything like that. I wanted a midwife. I really enjoyed that care. I thought that's what I needed. Like my whole family needed that, like that support and, you know, cohesion kind of thing. And so I, you know, interviewed a couple of midwives and looked at their policies, because I knew that not all midwives would take my risk. Like not all midwives would take a VBAC, not all midwives would take high blood pressure, or if you were medicated, some wouldn't take you. So I had to be diligent, and I had to ask all the questions, like if it did rise and I did need to be medicated, would you kick me out, kind of thing. I knew that the local hospital was not VBAC supportive. Like, that was a no for their home birth option. Also, birth centre, not really. And I met with a head OB, and she was not open-minded in the slightest. So I just thought that's not for me. But I met a couple of midwives, and we really gelled. And they didn't see it as high risk. It wasn't like a problem at all. The blood pressure or anything like that. So every time they've checked it so far, it's actually been low, which I'm quite proud of. But yeah, they were like, we'll just do the same thing that, Joe did, and we'll see how we go, and we'll throw everything at it if it does arise and whatnot. They gave me a couple of examples when women did get transferred for blood pressure. But what I liked was that they were like, again, it's your choice, like, you make the decision. However, if that was taken away from me, like, I would have to kind of really consider free birthing. Like, I couldn't go back into the setting that violated me. Like, there's no way. Like, just going into a hospital, like, my blood pressure rises. I can't. Like, it's just not, that's not a safe space for me. And that's the thing. It's like, individualistically, like, it's not a safe space. So, yeah, when I heard of this news, I was like, there's just no way. Like, you can't do this. Yeah.
And this is the thing. This is why we've all got to, everyone thinks someone else will write the letter and make the call. This is why we all need to jump on this bandwagon, because this is where the numbers matter, because we are a small group. We are a minority
already,
as it is. And so we need the vast majority of our minority to stand up and be really loud about this.
We're a power group, so because, pretty much any inquiry, something like this, or any letter writing campaign, even though there's big numbers that go in compared to any other campaign. It's absolutely, it's fabulous. The sisterhood's strong.
It is strong.
I love that, and I love being part of this group. Like, I think until you are initiated into motherhood, like, you just don't know, and it's so important to be loud to the new mums, to the women that are pregnant, to, you do have a voice and you do matter. Like, your experience is important, and it does shape who you are as a mum and as a woman. And you should have all the options. Like, no one's saying to take anything away, but you should 100% have options.
And how are you feeling going this birth, next birth?
Good. I feel really good. I mean, like I said, I saw that photo of me pushing. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to do that part. But, the whole experience, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a high, like, I'm ready to feel that high again of like going into labor and, going through the waves and whatnot, and then meeting my baby. So I'm stoked. Yeah. I'm so glad that I get to do this again.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it. But in terms of, because this series is about risk, and we've asked everybody in the series, who do you think should define it, of maternity care? Who do you think should define risk?
I think it's a risk that the woman is willing to take. Like, it's my body, it's my baby, and if I feel comfortable taking the perceived risk of having a caesarean, or having a vaginal birth after a caesarean, or if I, I know if I feel unwell. I know if I feel my baby's unwell. So it should be me. It should always be me. And like you take the risk from the moment that you have this baby. The hospital steps out and they're like, "Oh, see you later." Like, off you pop, get into a car and drive into traffic with this newborn. But 24 hours before that, they weren't willing for me to accept responsibility for my child. Like, it just seems sort of counterintuitive. So, yeah, I think it's, yeah. And I think I had that realization was, 24 hours prior, everyone was so worried about me and my blood pressure and my baby and whatnot. And then 24 hours later, I was like, I don't think he's eating, or, I don't think he's latching well. And they were like, "Oh, just give him a bottle. Like, just kind of shut up, like, move on." Like, so which one is it? Like, do you really care and want to be hyper vigilant about everything, or is it just this section that you would like to micromanage? So yeah, I think it's the woman's choice. It's the woman's risk to bear.
Because at the end of the day, you're driving off with that baby.
Exactly.
Or not. You're going
not.
from the lounge room to the bedroom.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to ask, Roo? Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I love it.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work? You were saying
my work?
Yeah.
Yes, I'd love to. I knew I wanted to work in the birth space. I didn't know in which capacity, so I was kind of like working on my stuff, and I realized that where I fell short was, I had the home birth planned. I had the wheels were in motion, but I didn't have my head on straight. I wasn't in it. So what I really want to do with coaching women is to change their brain, is to change their narrative, and to really work on their headspace and to move forward in birthing and in motherhood and start on the right foot.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
It's such a head game, isn't it?
It's a head game.
So much of it's a head game.
Yeah. And you don't know your limitations or like your blockages until hindsight. You're like, oh, I see how I've been a good girl my whole life and how I've been scared to say no, and it only kind of comes up or it doesn't. So it's been really powerful working with some women and allowing them to see, what they're capable of and where their kind of blind spots are. So that's where I'm at.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah.
You've got
thank
so
you.
much to share. Fabulous.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure, and talking to both of you.
Fabulous. So what do you think needs to happen for all women to emerge from their births physically well and emotionally safe?
I think they need to be in charge. I think they need to be prepared, like emotionally, and to be, knowledgeable on all the aspects of birth. You wouldn't step into any other role. You wouldn't step into any other journey without knowing the steps, without knowing, the rules kind of thing, like what's what. And here we are just being like, I just want a natural birth. Like, it's crazy. And then one thing that I found really funny is everyone that I spoke to prior to having children, they were like, oh yeah, I had an induction, or yes, blah, 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 it was a caesarean. Oh, okay, it was all great. And then post-birth, they were like, oh yeah, no, that caesarean was horrible. The induction was really bad. I'm like, why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago? So like just being honest and saying what's on how you actually felt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Lovely to see your face.
Yeah, you too. And
we look forward to hearing about this beautiful next little bubba that you're having.
Yes, hopefully it'll be another epic video.
Thanks for joining us, love.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, and all the best. Yeah, love the work, love the podcast. Love you guys.
And that's a wrap. You can check out the show notes to find websites, books, research articles, social media handles, and general information about each of our podcast guests. Thank you to our fabulous Birth Time sisters, Zoe Naylor and Selena Scoble, for supporting the creation of this podcast behind the scenes. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to Birth Time the podcast. Leave us a review and a rating, and please, we'd really love it if you'd share it amongst your friends and networks. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Birthtime World, and our website birthtime.world, where you can also stream and watch our international award-winning film, Birthtime the Documentary. You can find out more about me, Jo Hunter, and my midwifery work at midwifejo.com.au, and more about Jerusha Sutton and her gorgeous photography and doula work at jerusha.com.au. And thank you to you, our beautiful Birthtime family, for tuning in to Birthtime the podcast. We really do appreciate you all so, so much. Until next time.